Hello, listeners, and maybe even some viewers, and welcome to episode 48 of Gondor Calls for Ale, a Middle-earth strategy battle games podcast. I am, of course, your host, Sam Gallagher, and with me, as always, is my brother Ben.
Hello, listeners and viewers. Welcome to the show. 48, Sam. That's getting to be. It's getting to be close to an exciting number. 50,
Yeah.
50.
We're
That's got to
pushing.
get you and your wacky number theory going like crazy. Surely.
Of what's interesting and what's not. No, it's very exciting and kind of wild. Obviously,
Right.
if you're viewing this on YouTube, this is only the second episode currently available to you, but you can of course find all of the other ones on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, basically anywhere you get your podcasts if you just want to listen to the dulcet tones of Ben and Sam Gallagher rather than see our beautiful smiling faces.
Or perhaps, Sam, more importantly, they want to hear about all the silly beers that we drank in all 47 other episodes.
A little segue into that, and Ben, with that beautifully done segue, which I naturally called attention to, would you give us the scoop, or the pour, perhaps? What are you drinking this fine evening?
Well, Sam, I have gotten myself a Castellan Stout. This dark, dependable beer is sure to be... excuse me. This dark... I need to drink some of this. Little frog in my throat there. This dark, dependable beer is sure to be a smash hit wherever the legions of the Black Lord pour forth.
I see what you did there. Pour forth. Very good.
Yes.
Very good.
Indeed. So that's my tasty, delicious beer. Again, that was the Castellan Stout before I stuttered my way through that. What about you, Sam? What are you drinking for this episode?
Well, Ben, I'm having a Mithran beer. And that, of course, is a beer brought to you through shadow and death.
Very nice. Very nice. Mithran beer.
It is quite tasty, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Well, now we're all beered up and prepared. Shall we talk about what we're talking about in this episode?
Let us indeed talk about that.
We'll talk about talking about what we're going to talk about. All the talking and several abouts. So, in this episode, the episode will be covering Ben's attendance of the Michel Delving Society of Mathmon's Winter Classic. We're going to call it the Winter Classic.
Michel Delving Mathom Society.
Something. A fancy name. Too fancy for my measly hobbit self, I suppose. But we're talking about Ben's attendance of that, which I believe is a 600-point tournament, 3 rounds.
Yes.
And tomorrow, as we record this segment of the episode. So
yeah, I know. I've got an early start tomorrow.
Yeah. That's going to be exciting. Ben attending solo. Alas, I couldn't make this one. I think there was actually also only one ticket left, and I have a bunch of prep to do before I venture forth some painting as I'm trying to finish up some Golden Demon entries. But before we delve into what you're playing and then go into some battle reports, some game reviews, man, we are of course going to once again plug Gondor Calls for Ale Tournament Bingo, which, if you're listening, we have just brought up on the screen in a flash of exciting technological wizardry. Gandalf himself would be proud of my magic here. So yeah, this is Ben. Do you wanna give us the scoop? Paint us a picture with your words about what the Gondor Calls for Ale Tournament Bingo is.
So Tournament Bingo is a fun bingo competition that Sam and I have thrown together. Way back in the day, we used to do bingo just for ourselves to see what ridiculousness we could accomplish at various events, and now we have opened it up to all and sundry. There are sort of 2 levels of this going on. One is for just at Adepticon. Sam and I are going to be handing these out to anyone who wants to play at Adepticon. See if you can cross any of the things off these bingo lists and score a bingo for fabulous prizes to come.
Yes.
And the other way, we are opening it up to anyone who is not at Adepticon or just couldn't make it or wants to do it again twice at a different tournament. Is you can take one of these to any tournament you're going to from. What were the dates, Sam?
I believe it is going to be March 23rd
through May the 3rd.
That sounds correct. We'll go with that this time round.
Ooh. Steel trap. Yes. Anyway, you can take this bingo sheet to any tournament near you and attempt to score a bingo on it, and just have a good time. So I'm going to run through the the sheet again, Sam? We're going to do that? Or
I don't think we need to run through. I don't think we need to run through the whole thing. We
okay.
spent quite a long time talking about it in the previous episode. So if you don't remember or want to check it out in more depth, if this is perhaps your first experience of being called for ale, last episode we talked all about it. That would be episode 47. And we have yet to do this, so we should definitely do this. I'm not quite sure the best way, but we should share this. Maybe we'll share it on our Facebook. I think maybe that's the best way.
I'll do an Instagram and then a Facebook share. I think you can upload files to Facebook, so maybe we'll upload a cheat sheet. Both an image and everything. Get all that covered for those.
So we'll get that sorted out. But as part of if you're at Adepticon and you're attending Adepticon, in theory, if Ben and I remembered, we will have a stack of these things that you can come and ask us about, and you'll get a bingo sheet. You can fill it out, and hopefully we'll have some fabulous prizes, which fingers crossed will arrive in time. The other part of this, as Ben said, is you can, if you're not going to Adepticon, you want to give it a second go round, you can do it and send us an image of your completed bingo, or that you got a bingo. You don't have to do the full sheet by, I believe we said May 3rd, and after May 3rd for the next episode we have coming out, which should be May 17th, we will do a drawing for a random person. We'll send you a cool prize for participating in tournament bingo, and that will be the same thing for Adepticon. We alas are not made of money. I don't know what currency do they use in Middle Earth. Who knows? We'll call them Bombadil bucks. We are not made of Bombadil bucks, so there won't be a prize for everyone who completes it. You will you'll be in the running for a cool prize. Maybe we'll have a few. Not quite sure. But it's the idea is to try and make tournaments fun and less focused on the competitive aspect.
Last thing, we can't all win, so let's have some fun up and down the ladder, no matter where you land on that winning scale. Precisely.
My dream, Ben, for tournament bingo would be somebody on the top table sacrifices the first place in the tournament because they had to achieve something silly on Gondor Calls for Ale tournament bingo. That would be fantastic. Last thing about tournament bingo, and then we'll move into the meat and potatoes of this episode and this segment, which is, of course, talking about your attendance of the tournament and your army lists and all of that, is I was chatting with Tyler this morning. He was sending me a text. He'd just listened to the previous episode about tournament bingo. And he was saying that it sounded really fun and that it was like the secret objectives in the back of the match play guide. Apparently, there are secret objectives in the back of the match play guide, which I was like, what? I didn't know.
What's my match play guide?
Yeah, so that's kind of... So I thought that was kind of hilarious and worth pointing out that we came up with this idea all on our own without ever realizing that this was a thing that sort of already exists. And I think they do theirs as sort of like a deck of cards. I'm not sure if there's like, this is how you should use them, but it's pretty funny. And I skimmed through some of them, and it's like Kill a Wizard is one of theirs, and keep your army, like 75% of your army alive or some stuff. So there's some neat stuff in there as well. But this is Gondor Calls for Ale, so it's probably less competitive, more silly, and hopefully at least as enjoyable, if not more so.
Wow, I should really read the match play guide, I guess.
I know, right? I know. I was like, so many.
I read all the scenarios 1,000 times on this show.
Well, talking about reading scenarios 1,000 times, this is a very loose segue. I'm assuming we have read them 1,000 times because we talk about a lot of games, which we're now going to start into that, Ben. So, would you like to give us a rundown before I use my Astari magic to change the image that is displayed? Tell us what you're playing so we can be shocked and surprised, and then I'll move over to the army list.
Shocked and surprised. Well, faithful listeners of the show may not be too shocked or too surprised, but I'm bringing back an old favorite, Sam, for Bolg has returned to the show. That's right. Bolg's back, baby. Bringing him back.
Oh my God, he's back again. Well, that's very exciting. All right, here we go. Magical Bolg, Azog's Legion.
All right, so we've got 600 points here. In Warband 1, we've got Bolg. He's on the Felwag, and in his Warband, there are 2 ogres one Gundabad Orc Warrior with banner, spear, and shield, 6 Gundabad Orc Warriors with spear and shield, and 6 Gundabad Orc Warriors with shield. In the second warband, we have Thimble the Hunter on Felwag with 12 Hunter Orcs, for a total of 29 models and 1 bow, because Thimble the Hunter does in fact have a bow, despite not being modeled with one.
Okay, well, that not being modeled with one feels like you're taking a shot at me for not
No,
modeling.
it's a shot at Games Workshop. He comes out of the kit. It's baked into his profile. He has
funny.
a bow.
I didn't realize he had a bow. Wow.
Right.
So this is pretty cool because I don't have to have paid that much attention to your army list, and I can still see that you have 29 models.
Right.
We are, of course, if you're watching this and you're shocked and astounded with the beautiful displayed army list that is, of course, created on the Tabletop Admiral, who is not affiliated with Games Workshop or Gondor Calls for Ale. One can also assume the Tolkien estate, but it is definitely an awesome army list builder. Highly recommend checking him out and using to build your army list. But yeah, so 29 models, 1 bow, 6 might. So you have, does Bolg have?
I do have Master of Battle.
Right, he's Master of Battle, but he doesn't have March, right?
Bolg has March.
Oh, he does. Not that you particularly probably want to be.
No.
Huh. Interesting. What do you? Obviously, the 2 ogres is maybe not the optimal choice, but I'm super excited to see them back on the table.
Yeah, I just wanted to play something different that I haven't played in a while. A little bit more for fun. So breaking out some monsters. I've been writing about the monsters on the board, playing a little bit about on the Patreon posts. So I just wanted to give them a go,
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I'm just looking at this and trying to figure out if there's a way that you could squeeze a 3rd ogre in without dropping like a crazy amount of stuff. But I don't think.
No,
really
both warbands are totally full right now.
Yeah. Yeah, would you consider dropping a Gundabad Orc? So with spear and shield, they're 10 points.
10 points.
Yeah, I could do that math. It's 6 times 6 is 60. Well, that's not actually. It's 6 times 10 is 60, not 6 times 6 is also not 60. But, so they're 9 without, you could have, if you dropped 1, you'd go to 28 models. I was just thinking, could you drop like 1 Gundabad Orc and put 8 bows on the Hunter Orcs?
Oh, yeah, you could drop 1 Hunter Orc and put 6 bows on the Hunter Orcs. They get 50% bows. Yeah.
Oh right, of course. I was thinking it's across the whole. Yeah,
because they're allies.
But yeah. Yeah. So 6 bows probably not worth it. You probably that extra ones. I mean, so much of it is going to depend on the terrain and what scenarios and stuff you play. Well, that's exciting. That's going to be cool. And let's if you're a viewer, not that we have any particular bias to whether you view or listen, but we'll pull up I'll move over to some pictures of the army list while we perhaps chat about it a little bit more. Are there any scenarios that you particularly want to or don't want to see, Ben?
I feel like it's actually fairly well rounded as far as all the scenarios go. It's not a particularly strong list at any of them, but nor is it particularly weak. It's got a surprising amount of maneuverability. You've got 2 mounted heroes, and the 2 ogres are movement 8, and they can, in a pinch, run over top of my own troops, which is can always be a bit of a surprising moment. You think a hero's safe. I've definitely had a hero charge into 2 of my orcs, and then I squashed both orcs flat with an ogre and killed the hero instead, which was hilarious.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it does at 600 points. I mean, Bolg is scary, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, Azog would be probably a little more scary, but I fully support bringing Bolg back. I was, when there was at least 6 months, if not close to a year, where all you really played was Bolg. Right. And I was excited for you to try, and you were having mixed results, let's put it that way, and I was excited for you to try Azog. But now I'm very excited to see Bolg come back, and I think he might shine at 600 points. And
yeah, it seems like a good spot for him.
Just like, what are you going to run into that's... Because obviously the army is all fight 3, that's except for the ogres who are 5.
Yeah, ogres are 5. So, the ogres are defense 5, so a bit squishy.
Yeah, and having them on 2 models with 50 mil bases, like, it's not like, ooh, I can squeeze some fight 5 in here if I need it. So, and essentially what I was alluding to was that you may struggle with armies that are fight 4 or higher.
Mm-hmm.
But the armies that are going to have mass amounts of fight 4 or higher, are you going to like... It's sort of like, yeah, they might beat up on your troops, but at least the Gundabeds are pretty survivable. And the Hunter Orcs have a bunch of attacks, so a lot of the times that doesn't matter. You've got a reasonable number of models. What's the average? It's 600.
29. You're shooting for 30.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
if I could, you really can't squeeze any more troops in there. But
Right.
I wish I could have and keep both ogres, but I want more bodies, really, I think.
Right, well, you can't squeeze more troops in there without, like, you'd have to drop both ogres because you
Yeah.
drop one, you get one additional troop.
Yeah, exactly.
So you'd have to take a second hero. Yeah, no, I think it's very cool. I will be very interested to see how it goes. I think this is almost it for this segment of the episode, Ben, and you'll disappear off and come back and report to us. But before we let you go on your adventure, I have to ask if you have any hopes or dreams for this event. If you've got any, or if there's anything on that Gondor Calls for Ale tournament bingo that you think you might achieve.
Well, I can definitely achieve take a monster with no hero keyword.
There
They
you
have
go.
a cave troll.
Yeah,
Cross
yeah.
that one off right there. I bet Bolg can kill 2 heroes over the course of the 3-game tournament. That seems easy.
Thimble might be able to too, honestly.
Yeah. It'll be fun to play Bolg. I could just do him, give him the berserker and play him thematically,
Yeah.
just charge on in all the time.
Yeah.
I'm also quite excited to use the ogres as bait. They make really good bait, so you can put one of the ogres out because they're relatively easy. Fight 5, 3 wounds, defense 5. They're relatively easy for a hero to kill, and you can put them out and let a big hero kill them, and then have Bolg and Thimble and the other ogre, pounce in on that hero. So trying to use the ogres to give up the ogre for something better.
All right. Well, that all sounds good, and I look forward to hearing about how it goes. And I'm sure our listeners and probably our viewers as well, if they're still tuning in, look forward to hearing and seeing how it goes, Ben. So get some good rest. As a Spartan mother would say, come back with your shield or on it.
All right, I shall.
And we are back, in case you can't tell from our voices returning, and if you're watching on the tubes of you, our faces. And that's right, Ben has returned. He's gone to a Winter Classic, and he has returned to tell us all about it. So Ben, tell us all about it. How was the trip? How was the event? And then get into some games.
Oh, well, the trip was pretty awful because it was a classic winter day, Sam. It was rainy and sleety and gross. It was a great day to be inside playing with little toys. It was in a pretty sweet venue, actually. It was in a local church, which was nice. Had a nice open ceiling, plenty of room for tables. There was a lunch spot not too far away. So it was a great venue, great tournament. I think we had 20 players exactly, actually. 20 players exactly.
Oh, okay.
Good turnout.
Not bad. Well, that's cool. Shame about the drive, but I have to say, I imagine that on the plus side, you're not driving from Maine or in a Maine tournament where perhaps there are further distances to travel between games.
Yes, indeed. It was not too far of a journey. But Sam, enough of the travels and the tribulations thereof. Let us get into some games. So for round 1, I was playing against Casey, and he had brought the Bjornings.
Interesting.
And we were playing on a pretty cool Osgiliath board. I call all Ruin City board Osgiliath boards, but it could have been any Ruin City in the path of the forces of Mordor, really.
Yeah. And
Or in this case, Dol Guldur.
What scenario were you playing?
And we ended up playing Capture and Control.
The old Capture and Control. Here we go. Scenario 9. We get a little bit of Sam reads out of a book to you, dear listeners and viewers. So here we go. If we were on it, as we should have been, we could have been displaying a map of the deployment zone. So we're not. So instead, you'll get a poor description of them. So it's a 24-inch up deployment zones, but for each warband, you have to roll a d6 or 1, 2, 3. They have to be deployed within 24 and 12 inches, so they have to be deployed in the closer 12-inch sections on a 4 through 6. You can put them anywhere on the board, and we've got some objectives which you can just about make out in this picture if you're viewing, but if you're listening, we've got one in the center and then one in each, like in the 5 pattern of a dice, I think is how we like to describe it. And we've got some scenario special rules which we'll go through, and then we'll do the scoring. We've got controlling objectives. At the start of the game, all objectives are considered to be neutral and do not belong to either side. If, during the end phase of any turn, one or more of your models is in base contact with an objective, it is under your control. If during the end phase, both sides have a model in base contact with an objective, it returns to neutral. You get scoring. You score 2 victory points for each objective marker that is under your control at the end of the game. You score 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds to the enemy leader. You score 1 victory point if the enemy force is broken at the end of the game. There we go. Capture and control. I will say that if you are interested in an in-depth, very, very tactically sound analysis of this or other objectives, other scenarios, you can of course check out our Patreon where we review each and every one of them. Of course, if we were on it and you're on YouTube, there could have been a slide with our logo and a little Patreonic P up there,
well,
but we're not.
Only our second videos now. We'll get better. We'll get better.
True. All right, Banks. Capture and control against the Bjornings with Bolg and the ogres. How were you feeling?
I was not feeling good about this one, Sam. I was ready to lose this. I should say, too, that it was the veto system, but it was a special veto where Ian, the tournament organizer, had put together special rounds. So we were vetoing between Lords of Battle, Capture and Control, and Heirlooms of Ages Past. I immediately threw out Lords of Battle, did not want to play that against the Bears. My opponent threw out Heirlooms of Ages Past, so we played Capture and Control.
Very good.
And I ended up deploying first, put down Thimble in the middle of the board. Grimbjorn goes in the middle of the board, slightly more towards my left-hand side objective. I put down Bolg on the board. I'm sorry, he put down Bjorn first. That's right, because when I put down Bolg, I made sure to make use of that fell side. I put Bolg off on my right-hand flank behind a building with an ogre to back him up and make sure that he can charge into Bjorn. He's within 10 inches of Bjorn if he wants to charge. And then the rest of my warband are behind the building. My plan was I was going to pretend like I was going to rush that flank objective, then actually rush the other way while spending most of the game backpedaling and running away from the Bjornings. This was my cunning plan because I expected him to call a heroic move and run away from Bolg with Bjorn on the first turn. So we get into priority, and I take first turn priority, and he decides not to call a move. Right? So I was like, well, Sam, if you threaten to do something, you should follow through on your threats, I think. So I did indeed. I followed through on my threats, and I charged Bolg into Bjorn, and I also got 2 Hunter Orcs into Bjorn, and then just rushed up the rest of my army, which left me regretting having honestly deployed them as far back as I did. I was like, well, shit, now I'm too far back. I wish I could have been further forwards, get more guys into combat, really just absolutely saturate Bjorn with models. But I did make sure to get a nice flanking curtain pushing towards Grimbjorn's warband to make sure that Grimbjorn wasn't just going to come cannoning into me and absolutely shred my forces. And Thimble and a Hunter Orc went back to get the backmost objective in my table half, and Thimble was doing this big old loop to avoid the 3 or 4 great bows that are on the Bjornings, because I have heard it said, Sam, that those bows are great.
That's true. Some say.
So I've got Bolg and 2 Hunter Orcs into Bjorn. I keep wanting to call him Grimbjorn. It's into Bjorn. And I expected pretty much all of Bjorn's warband to charge into Bolg, and just it be Bolg versus 5 Bjornings because he's got a huge base. But that's not what Casey did. Casey charged in with 1 of them into Bolg, and the rest of them just go around and get into my Hunter Orcs. Grimbjorn, of course, turns into a bear, charges into my little screen wall of Hunter Orcs, which leaves Bolg fighting only 1 Hunter Orc next to a hero who is currently only fight 6, which is where Bolg loves to be. Bolg loves this. So in the combat phase, Bolg calls a heroic combat, and Bjorn, of course, calls a strike. So Bolg calls a combat, kills the one Bjorning he's in combat with, goes into another Bjorning. Unfortunately, he has to spend a point of might to win that fight. But that's okay. We kill 2 Bjornings this turn, and Bolg now causes terror for whatever that's worth.
Did you consider only charging Bolg into Bjorn so that he had to fight him and make it a strike off? Because if you win, he's a man, right? Because he can't turn into a bear. You knock him down, and then you need what, like 4s, maybe 3s on 6 dice, or 8 dice?
My worry was that it was going to be Bolg and Bjorn and all of the Bjornings in that warband. You know, like I knew Bolg was going to get countercharged by the Bjornings.
But you got to risk it to get the biscuit.
Well, that's fair.
Because you need the 4+ to get to the 10. You need a 3. You know, he's lower fight. You have your defense 7. Like, he probably kill. You know, I don't know. I just curious.
No, I did, but yeah, I didn't want it to just be, you know, Bjorn, 5 Bjornings versus Bolg. That felt terrible. That felt like just how I was going to lose my leader right off. But you know, it's a good point. I was already not feeling great about this game from the get-go, so maybe I should have just gone for it. Just
imagine if you'd killed Bjorn on turn 1, like that would have been it. Driver's seat of the game.
Yeah,
whole game. But 'twas not to be.
So, of course, as we expect, Grimbeorn plows through 2 of my Hunter Orcs, doesn't call any combats or anything from Grimbeorn, kills 2 of my Hunter Orcs, 1 of the other Bjornings, or 2 of the other Bjornings, chop down another 1 of my Hunter Orcs, and then, Sam, we get to the most important combat of the turn for me, which is Bjorn fighting off with 1 Hunter Orc. Bjorn takes up his dice, and I think he rolled like a 4 high, and I took up my Baron of Dice, Sam, my special Rings of Power, matte black, hand-swirled resin dice with the nice square corners, perfectly weighted, nice and heavy and reliable. I took up my dice, and I rolled boxcars, 2 6s. 2 6s won the fight against Bjorn. He didn't want to spend his last 2 points of might to win your fight against a Hunter Orc, because, like, you don't want to spend might to win fights against troops, but Hunter Orcs, Sam, are deadly. Because I then picked up those same 2 dice and rolled 2 5s and threw 2 wounds down on man-sized Bjorn.
Nice. To reiterate, those beautiful Baron of Dice are of course available to you, and as the Baron of Dice is a sponsor, the official sponsor of Gondor Calls for Ale, you can find a link in the description of this episode wherever you're listening to it, and you can go and purchase yourself some fantastic dice. You can use our promo code of capital G, capital C, capital A to get yourself a nice discount on your entire order, and also help out Gondor Calls for Ale. So we strongly encourage you to check that out. And as Ben has proved, they roll quite well.
Oh yeah, it was saucy. It was saucy, and it gets better, Sam, because Bjorn, of course, spends 2 fate to save those wounds, and it doesn't go off. He fails one of them, so he spends a 3rd point of fate and fails it yet. So Bjorn is down to 2 points of might. Well, he's taken 1 wound and is completely out of fate. So we are pretty happy about that.
Nice, excellent.
So we get into priority for turn 2, and I once again take priority. So Bjorn spends another point of might to call a heroic move, and Bolg, master of battle it is, copies it for free. Unfortunately, Casey wins the move off. Bjorn transforms into a bear and goes charging into Bolg. Is what it is. You know, we re-engage. Grimbeorn is pushing more towards the center objective, leaving me to control the right objective because Bjorn has backed off to go charge Bolg. Thimble is still continuing his big old flanking maneuver around the flank to the leftmost objective. And I send my Ogre in. Ogre manages to pass his terror test. Courage 3 Ogre passes his terror test and runs in to back up Bolg with Bjorn, because now Bjorn's trapped against the building between with his big old base between Bolg and my Ogre. Nice. So we get into the fight phase. I managed to kill 2 Bjornings last turn, I think I said, and took 3 casualties. This turn, I managed to kill another 2 Bjornings, but took 4 casualties. But we, of course, have the epic strike-off between Bolg, the Bolg and the bear. And Bolg strikes with a 1, goes up to fight 8. Bjorn, I think, got up to a total of 14, not that we care, he was at a 10. Bjorn wins the strike-off and just absolutely obliterates Bolg. Down he goes. Bolg is killed at the end of turn 2. Despite being backed up by an Ogre, it just wasn't enough, and my Ogre's knocked prone. I think he also took a wound from the bear, so it was not looking good for me, Sam. But we've killed 4 Bjornings. That's a start. It's a start.
So he put 3 attacks into Bolg.
Yep. 3 attacks and scored like 4
yeah,
wounds between
yeah.
those 3 attacks.
Gotcha.
Because the Bolg was monstrous charge, knocked off his warg.
A shame, a shame. And,
Yeah.
perhaps the biggest shame of it all is that if you're not viewing and are just listening, alas, it is a 3D printed bear that looks
Yes. Well,
quite small. And that always makes me sad. I think Beyondings are. If you've listened to the podcast, you know that 3D printing is not always my favorite thing. I don't absolutely hate it, but I do like to support the game in a vote with my dollar, as it were. And I think Beyondings are particularly susceptible to 3D printing because you don't need that many of them, and for whatever reason, people don't like the bear models, which I think are pretty sweet. But well. So Bolg's down. Bolg's down.
Bolg is
Looking behind his
down.
shoulder.
My ogre's taken a wound, but I've got good control of the right flank objective. And Fimble, in this next turn, I take priority. Fimble charges into the one Beyonding that's over by the left flank objective. Grimbeorn is fighting my orcs around the center. There's like 2 Beyondings left. My hunter orcs are fighting Grimbeorn. And in the combat phase, Fimble calls a strike. We're not screwing around. He's the same fight as that Beyonding. We're calling the strike. He doesn't actually manage to kill the Beyonding, but he does win the fight, pushes them off the objective, and now I control 3 of the 5 objectives are mine. The one in my back corner, the rightmost one, Fimble's taken the left one, the center, and the one in the Beyonding's backfield still belong to the Beyondings. But we do manage to kill another 2 Beyondings this turn. Turns out when you surround Beyondings and trap them with Hunter Orcs, they die. So we lose another 3 and kill another 2. Grimbeorn spends his first point of might to call a heroic combat and is probably responsible for a number of those kills. Casey's Beyondings did not get the 6s this game. You know, there are games when you play Beyondings and they get the 6 and they mow through things like butter. It was not this game.
Every game I play against Jake and his Beyondings. Those damn Imperial Fist dice. Cause you.
Yeah. So turn 4 rolls around. And Bjorn has charged. Casey takes priority. Bjorn comes charging back. Into my battle line. Grimbjorn is mopping up what's left. And I decide, screw it. We're going to get as many orcs as we can into this bear. He's out of might. He is, because he's called a move, a strike, and 2 strikes. He's out of might. He's out of fate. He's already taken a wound. So we got, and I passed a lot of courage tests. I think I failed 2 or 3 of them, but I got the ogre into Bjorn. I got 2 hunter orcs in there. I got a couple of Gunderbads. I got some spear supports. I had my banner in there, spear supporting. And sensing the trouble, Grimbjorn comes rushing off the center objective to try and bail out Bjorn, which leaves me free to sort of mob up in the center, and Fimble starts running off towards the back objective because I had an ogre backing him up as well. So I've got an ogre who's going to mop up the Bjorning on the left objective, the Fimble wounded. Fimble's heading for the Bjorning's back objective. There's only like 2 or 3 Bjornings left on the center objective, and they're surrounded by the last of my orcs. And everyone else is now fighting a bear, basically. And we get into the fight phase. And once again, Sam, I pick up my trusty Baron of my fistful at this point. I had so many dice in this fight. It was great. My fistful of Rings of Power, Baron of Dice, matte black, and I got a whole bunch of 6s. It doesn't matter. But Bjorn, importantly, did not get the 6, loses the fight. And I just rolled the Hunter Orc dice, and he was trapped and killed by the Hunter Orcs. Didn't even get to roll the Ogre or the Gunderbads, and stabbed to death by Hunter Orcs. So that was, Bjorn was killed this turn. And the game is all of a sudden swinging back my way.
Nice.
And I lose another 3 Orcs this turn and kill another 2 Bjornings, which breaks the Bjornings this turn. So turn 5, priority goes to me, and Grimbjorn decides not to call a heroic combat. Bjorn is dead. So I capitalize in, I swarm the center. We get 1 orc to tie up Grimbjorn. And Fimble gets on the Bjorning's objective. We kill 2 more Bjornings this turn. Grimbjorn calls another heroic combat, spends another point of might to win that combat, but kills a total of 4 orcs this turn, just in an absolute rage. But the game ends with a 1 or a 2 in this game, and I rolled it, and we got the 1 or a 2. The game ended. I was broken at the end of this turn, so it's a 12-2 win to me, with me controlling all the objectives, but having lost my leader and being broken as well.
Not bad, not bad. So a major victory starting out for Bolg and the Ogres. Excellent.
I know. Absolutely shocked to have won that against the Beyonding, especially after Bolg went down.
Yeah, well.
But, there you go, Sam.
I guess it was an objective game, right? Where you have the numbers.
Yep.
I probably would have vetoed this one as the Bjorning player.
Yeah, I think the Bjornings would have done better at heirlooms.
Because you just run and try and take them, and then even if you flip it or you're holding that last objective, you have 2 bears to like just slam through and get to that.
And you can't run up. It's so hard to run away from the bears with movement 8 and the
Yeah.
charge and the heroic combat.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, very good. Very good. All right, Ben. So you were saying to me when we talked about this that this game only took but mere moments to play.
Yeah, this one took about 45 minutes, and then it was all over. Which is Bjornings, though. They win fast or lose fast.
Yeah. But they were how long were the rounds? Because this was 600 points, right?
So it was 600 points. The rounds were 2 hours, and Ian, the tournament organizer, did ask for a little feedback. If I can find the email, I will email him. I think the rounds were too long. It was nice because I think there were maybe only like 1 or 2 games over the whole tournament between all 20 players that actually timed out. Like mostly everyone got to finish their round.
Yeah.
But at the end of round 2 and round 3, there were like, I don't know, 2 tables still playing with 15 minutes left on the clock, and everyone else was done. With 30 minutes left on the clock, there were still 4 tables playing. So it could definitely have been an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Always a tough balance of how long to make a round. I think because you certainly can get games that you get the one slow person at the event and you're just like, and now we stayed until the absolute last possible minute.
Yep.
And if we'd ended, and if we'd it would be nice to get home 45 minutes earlier, kind of thing, because the majority of everyone else was able to finish their rounds. But enough about that. Into round 2, Ben. Who were you playing? What was their army? What was the table like? What was the mission? Give us all of those details.
All right. So I was playing Bill, who I've seen around at these events quite a lot. And as mentioned, we had a special veto. So we were vetoing between To the Death, Hold Ground, and Fog of War. And his army was an allied force of Erebor Reclaimed and the Halls of Thranduil. We have Thorin, King under the mountain on Goat with 89 Hills Dwarves, one of whom's carrying a banner. I think they were sword and shield, 9 sword and shield, 9 spear and shield, like you expect. No crossbows. And then we've got Legolas, Prince of the Woodland Realm, on horse with like 5 or maybe 10 elves and 2 Mirkwood cavalry or something like that. And he vetoed Fog of War. He voted. I forget who vetoed what. Anyway, we ended up playing Hold Ground, Sam. Scenario 3.
Scenario 3, excellent. Hold Ground. Hold as I find it. I have found it in my handy dandy match play guide. And we will go through this. This is, of course, no deployment zone, so we didn't miss out on putting them on the screen because it is a Maelstrom mission. We have the objectives for this mission. The game lasts until a turn in which one force has been broken. After that, it may end on a 1 or a 2. We've got scoring victory points. You score... I should say there's a central objective. That is key. We could have had that on the screen, and I might not have missed it, but there is a central objective, because you score 3 victory points if you have more models within 6 of the center objective than your opponent. If you have twice as many models within 6 inches of the center objective than your opponent, instead you score 5. If you have 3 times as many models within 6 of the center objective, you're the only player to have, or you're the only player to have models within 6 inches. There we go. I can still read. It's fine. You score 7. You score 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds to the enemy leader. 2 if you kill them. You score 1 victory point if the enemy force is broken at the end of the game. If the enemy force is broken and you are unbroken, instead you score 3. And then, of course, there's the special rule of Maelstrom of Battle, which I will not bother reading, but you roll and randomly come onto the board.
Yeah, good stuff. So I was outnumbered. I have 27 models in my force, and Bill had, I think, 31. So I was outnumbered by an army that fights with higher fight than me. So I was a little bit stressed and was definitely, expecting Legolas to take Bolg off his warg ASAP. So it was important to go hide behind these buildings. I didn't mention the board, so our viewers can obviously see, but we were playing on a cool little Rohan board. There's a scattering of 5 houses with a millstone in the middle of the board. So we were clearly looking to grind bread, Sam. I had smelled dwarf and elf bones, and I was looking to grind and make some bread, because that's how
what
we do it.
What else are you going to do with them?
Yeah, so I take first turn priority, and Bolg rolls a 3, and I decided not to spend might on it. Whatever, is what it is. And Bill puts me, pretty much as far into the corner as I can be with that warband. Thimble gets a 5 and decides to come in the center of a board edge nearby the Bolg so that my army is somewhat together. Thorin rolls a sweet 6 and decides to come in from the western board edge with his warband, rides on with his goat, leaving his warband behind. And Legolas rolls a 1 and does not arrive this turn.
And of course, you said fee fi fo fum. Bolg smells the blood of Thranduril's son.
I wish I had, Sam. That is punchy and snappy, and I truly wish I had. It's funny foreshadowing that you should mention that because Bolg had a hungering for elves this game. He really did. So I take the next turn priority. I run up forwards. I know Legolas is coming on the board, so I endeavor to get my mounted heroes somewhere behind a building as well as my ogres because they're juicy targets and I like them for bait and I don't want to use them as bait just yet. Legolas does manage to come on the board. I think he rolled a 4 and regrettably didn't have to spend any might and comes in on the southern board edge, northern board edge, right opposite from Thimble. Isn't able to get any shots off this turn, but just rides right on. Turn 3, Bill takes priority, which is great because it means that he moves Legolas first, so I know where I need to hide. And again, we all just move forwards. And he's been pushing Thorin and the dwarves up towards the middle of the board at this point. So I basically rushed up Thimble and Bolg and the ogres and had them all out of line of sight from Legolas, but all of them, not the ogres, but Bolg and Thimble were both within charge range of Thorin. It was just like, hey, if you want to be there out in the open, away from your shield wall, Thorin, Bolg and Thimble are going to come and knock you down next turn. So Thorin backs off on the next turn, and which is great, gives me a chance to get my warband closer up to the battle action. And I take the next priority, and here we get into an interesting turn because when Thorin backs off, it leaves me free to move up again, bring up my shield wall, and I put Bolg in a position where he could still be threatening the center, but also charge into Legolas, who's hiding back behind the shield wall of elves. And again, I was about 10 inches of Legolas, so I wasn't going to get the Master of Battle move-off thing, which can be kind of nice to get. But I won the next priority, and again, I was expecting my opponent to call the move and run away from Bolg, and he didn't, so I charged in, Sam. I went for it. Bolg went in behind the elven spear wall, around the building, into Legolas, and I sent an ogre and Thimble, both of whom are fight 5, into the front of the elven shield wall, essentially to try and stop it from just not being Bolg versus an entire warband.
Right.
Gonna try and back him up. It does leave the rest of my army, which is now pretty well occupied the center of the board. It does leave them without a hero, because Bolg and Thimble are all the way off on a flank. I've just got an ogre with my force. But the dwarves are still a fair way off. So I rush in, and then Thimble gets mobbed. Thimble and the ogre get mobbed by elves, which is what we expect, and Thorin goes cannoning into my battle line in the front, and the dwarves are still just facing off against me, not quite in combat with my orcs. I made sure to keep the orcs out of combat with the dwarves for as long as possible while still controlling the center. So in the combat phase, Legolas, of course, calls a heroic strike. Bolg calls a free heroic strike with Master of Battle, and Thorin calls his free heroic combat. So Thorin's heroic combat goes first. He slays 2 hunter orcs and then goes charging into the back of my ogre, which is, absolutely doomed at this point. It's fighting Thorin and 5 elves or something. But that's okay. It was there to distract from Bolg. And honestly, I'd rather Thorin take his time to chew through my ogres than just obliterate 4 orcs a turn.
Yeah, fair.
Was my feeling about that. So we get into the epic strike-off, Bolg versus Legolas. Here we go, Sam. And Bolg's second strike of the game, second strike of the tournament. He rolls another 1.
Oh no!
Boom! Legolas rolls a 5 and gets up to that sweet fight 10. But then, Sam, glory of all glories, Legolas rolls a 3 high. Bolg gets the 6. Bolg wins the fight, and I think I threw 3 wounds on Legolas. He spends 3 fate and still takes a wound, but he is not dead, unfortunately. But, a satisfying turn nonetheless. So Bill takes turn 5 priority. So I decide to call a heroic move with Thimble. So Legolas calls a counter move, and Bolg gets a free Master of Battle move. Unfortunately, Legolas wins the move off, runs away. A bunch of elves tag Fimble. In fact, I think Thorin went into Fimble. No, Thorin doesn't go into Fimble. Thorin goes back into my battle line. I'm sorry, tell a lie. Yes, Thorin goes back into my battle line with the intent of just starting to munch through 4 orcs a turn like he is known to do. Fimble gets surrounded by a bunch of elves, one of whom was cavalry, I think. Anyway, whatever, it doesn't matter. The ogre's over there is dead. Bolg gets surrounded by 3 or 4 elves, which cancels my heroic movement. Legolas backs up. In my turn, and of course, all the dwarves come plowing into my orc shield line, like you would expect them to do at this point. In my turn, I decide that the 2 orcs that are fighting Thorin are dead. They're doomed. Sam, they're going to die. There's nothing they can do. So I move up my ogre and crush them flat, but don't go into combat with Thorin and go into combat with the elf next to him. Which also required me to crush a 3rd elf, but the elf was a cavalry model, so it was one of the Rivendell Knights, not the Rivendell Knights, sorry, the Galadrim Knights, no. Mirkwood Knights, there we go, 3rd time round. 3rd time's the charm. Mirkwood Knights. So we had to squish 3 of my own Hunter Orcs, but we denied Thorin the heroic combat, which is always entertaining.
I assume Bolg was fighting too many elves to where you couldn't master battle, or was further enough away that it wasn't.
Yeah, he was like 10 inches away from Thorin and surrounded by. I think he was only fighting 3 elves at this point.
But if he was out of the 6, because that's the other thing, right? Is when you have that hero who gets the free heroic combats, and you've got an Azog or Bolg nearby, you're like, I want my 3 heroic combats, but I don't want to give Azog and Bolg free heroic combats.
Honestly, I think I should have been concentrating on trying to keep Bolg near Thorin instead of hunting down Legolas. My thought was that if I can kill Legolas while I'm still on my Warg, then I'm still on my Warg, and now I'm just going to mess Thorin up. So, my Ogre crushes 2 guys. I'm moving second, so I'm re-engaging the dwarves. I get a bunch of combats where it's like 200 orcs with 2 spear supports fighting a dwarf with a spear support. I've got at least 2 fights like that, and a couple other ones where it's 200 orcs with 1 spear support, or like 2 Gundabad's with 2 spear supports. I've got a lot of fights where I'm 2-on-1, 3-on-1 kind of fights with these dwarves. In the shooting phase, Legolas unpredictably shoots Bolg off his Warg.
Checks out.
Bolg does not get the 6, but also does not get the 1. Wins his fight and stands up fighting the elves. In the rest of the fight phase, the rest of this battle line, I did not win a single fight this turn. Yeah. So when you've got the high fight, you expect to win like 3 out of 5 fights. There's obviously a lot of fights going on. It's 18 dwarves versus 20 orcs. Didn't win a single fight and lost 9 models this turn.
Oof, that's rough.
Yeah, pretty rough. Very, very thankful to have denied Thorin his heroic combat.
Right, that is probably statistically unlikely.
Yeah. Unfortunately, as well, including the combats I did not win, Fimble against the elves. Fimble calls a heroic strike, but it is not enough. He does not win. I've got the high fight, didn't get the 6, and is clubbed to death by a bunch of elves. So Fimble dies this turn. He's one of my 9 casualties.
I would argue that the elves probably didn't club him to death, as they probably didn't have clubs.
That's probably true. They probably skewered him elegantly to roast him.
Seems like the least elvish weapon of all time, the club.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something about someone mobbed by a bunch of guys just.
Yeah, like cutting him down. Cutting
him down.
All right. Anyway, enough.
Enough of that. So Bill takes the next priority. He moves 3 elves into combat with Bolg, and supports them with spears. All well and good. Thorin goes into combat. Lines relock, and I decide, screw it. This is my only chance. I'm calling a combat with Bolg. Going to call heroic combat, Sam. I'm surrounded. I'm trapped. Whatever. I'm way out of position. I've lost this game at this point. The game is over. Call a heroic combat. I do win the fight, but only kill one of the elves I'm in combat with, which is my only kill this turn. The dwarves won a lot of fights, or I won some fights, didn't kill any dwarves. The dwarves, nothing happened in the middle, except for Thorin, who, of course, called his heroic combat, had to spend... That's right, he's fighting the ogre that had denied him the heroic combat last time. He was angry. He had to spend a point of might to win his duel, and then he failed to wound the ogre, which was fantastic. Nice. So the ogre's still sitting there, still sitting pretty, living strong. Unfortunately, Bolg has done absolutely nothing. And over the next 2 turns, I take both the priorities, but on turn 7, take both the priorities. I managed to kill 2 of the dwarves finally. I've inflicted some casualties. I've killed 1 elf and 2 dwarves at this point. Taken another 4 casualties. Thorin spends another point of might to win one of his duels. Legolas shoots the ogre and spends a point of might to wound the ogre, and then Thorin, I think, kills the ogre this turn. Bolg wins his fight, but doesn't manage to kill any elves. Turn 8, priority again goes to me. We re-engage as best we can, trying to
I mean, what's
just
Bolg need to kill these elves? Like fours?
fives, fours,
Fives?
fives and fours. I was just rolling awfully. It was great. It was just terrible, Sam.
That's pretty bad.
On turn 8, I take another 5 casualties and I'm broken, but Bolg has finally woken up. He's enraged. He's like got out of his stupor or whatever and kills the 3 elves that he's been fighting for 2 turns, for 3 turns. Finally kills some elves. So he is now, for those who have been counting, up to 5 kills and has both Terror and Harbinger of Evil.
All right.
And I'm broken at the top of this turn, but when we roll to see if the game ends and the game continues. So turn 9, and at this point I lose the rest of my army. I take another 6 casualties, and there is absolutely nothing left over the millstone. Thorin has chopped through me. The dwarves have chopped through me. We had a real grind. We slowed it as best we could, but it was not enough. So by the end of turn 9, Bolg is the only model I have left on the table. But he wins his fight against the elves and slays another 2 elves this turn. On turn 10, we roll the dice at the end of turn 9 and the game continues. On turn 10, Bill takes priority and runs away from me like the coward that he is, but Bolg doesn't run away enough. One of the Bolg passes his courage test, because I'm broken, obviously. Doesn't even have to spend any will. I was rolling like 10s for these things. Bolg was enraged, Sam. Charges into the elf, kills the elf. And then Bill brings his shield wall forwards to sort of shield Bolg away from the middle, because for some reason this game is not ending. We go on to turn... I think we go on for turn... It like goes off my score sheet. We go on to turn 11 or 12. Bolg kills another 3 models over the course of this, getting up to 11 kills with his mighty hero, and then the game finally ends just as he gets into the shield wall and kills... I think I got a heroic combat off. Killed 4 dwarves, and then the game ended. It was a 10-0 loss, because Bolg was completely untouched. He was unwielded. Legolas was taking shots at him all game, and the arrows were just ricocheting off, and he was just chopping through stuff. It was hilarious, because I lost this on turn 3 or turn 5, somewhere in there, and then it went on for 12 turns with just Bolg being an absolute, doing Bolg things. It was absolutely fantastic.
Oof. Well, a shame. A major victory followed by a major defeat, I suppose.
Yeah.
All you need now is a major draw, and you'll have completed the set.
Yeah. Major draw indeed, Sam.
So, all right. So we've had 2 rounds, kind of cool, 2 pretty thematic rounds, because obviously, as we know, Bolg and Azog both like torturing skin changers, and which you did, even though Bolg perhaps died in the effort, and then you fought a little Battle of the 5 Armies-esque army situation going on. So into round 3, I think we plunge, Ben. Were you...
I mean, very, very thematic, right? Because in the books, Bolg is killed by Bjorn, and in the film, Bolg fights Legolas.
Yeah,
beats the snot out of him a little bit before dying. But
though disappointing that I assume Bjorn didn't bear hug Bolg to death, which is
should
be. If you were playing with Gondor Calls for Ale tournament bingo as your main priority, that's the kind of move you would do.
Absolutely.
But enough of that, Ben. Into round 3. Who were you playing? What were they playing? What was the scenario? What was the table like? Tell us all about it.
Well, Sam, I was playing on my most favoritist kind of board, which is a Shire board.
Excellent.
And we were vetoing between Command the Battlefield, Breakthrough, and Divide and Conquer. And my opponent Alex was playing the Fiefdoms with Imrahil, Forlong the Fat, and Angborn the Fearless, with a assortment of various Fiefdoms folk. We had some Blackroot Vale archers and some pikemen and some axemen of Lamadon, and all the flavors of the Fiefdoms were there. And we ended up playing scenario 15, which is Breakthrough.
Yes, Breakthrough. 24-inch up deployment zones. You've got 4 objectives on this table, basically like in a diamond shape. So you've got a back objective in your deployment, 2 on the center line, and a objective in your opponent's deployment zone. And the game lasts until the end of a turn in which one force has been reduced to 25% of its starting number. You've got victory points. You score 1 victory point if there are more friendly models than enemy models within 3 inches of the objective in your deployment zone. For each of the center line objectives, you score 1 victory point if there are more friendly models than enemy models within 3. If you have at least 1 friendly model and the enemy has no models within 3, instead you score 2 victory points. And then you score 2 victory points if there are more friendly than enemy models within 3 of the opponent's objective. If there's at least one friendly model and no enemy models within 3, instead you score 4 victory points. You score 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds to the enemy leader. If you kill the enemy leader, instead you score 2 victory points, and you score 1 victory point if the enemy force is broken at the end of the game. All right. Breakthrough, Ben. You like this scenario? I believe this is one.
I
of the
do.
ones
I quite
that
like
you
this
enjoyed.
scenario. I do. Yeah, it's a fun one. And we're obviously playing on the Shire board, and we've got 2 objectives on the center line, one of which ends up in this little lake that we've got in the Shire. One is between this barrel and a tree. And then the 2 backfield objectives, we've got one that's behind a hobbit hole. If you're a viewer, that center hobbit hole that the fiefdoms are deployed around, their objective is very behind that hobbit hole. It's sort of in a butt shape, Sam. It was in the crack of the hobbit hole butt. And then my objective was behind this little stone wall. So Alex picked the deployment zones and decided he wanted the deployment zone that had the hobbit hole objective.
Would you
I
call
think
it
he deployed
the butthole?
the butthole objective. He deployed
Butt shape.
Imrahil first in sort of about 12 inches up off on my right-hand flank. Not about 6-7 inches away from that objective. And I put down Thimble with half of his warband behind the stone wall, with cunning plans in mind for them, Sam. Going to defend my objective for a change here, and then half of his warband are pushed as far forwards as they can be. So Thimble's stretching his warband with his 6-inch deployment zone. And then I put down Thimble because I wanted Bolg to do threatening Bolg things on the first turn, which has been my theme for this tournament. If you've noticed, Bolg's been threatening people.
Would you say, Ben, that Bolg has been acting like Bolg perhaps would?
Yeah, I think I would. I think I would say that.
All right. I'll allow it.
In acting in character. So Forlong goes down next. Now he goes down within about 3 or 4 inches of the center line, off on my left-hand flank, in front of the hobbit hole, next to this big barrel of beer. Forlong the Fat was obviously into this big. I decided it was full of beer because naturally we're Gondor calls for ale. So Bolg and Forlong were going to have this epic battle. Maybe not so epic for Forlong, but Bolg was going to steal his beer barrel from him. So Forlong's deployed. He's in front of his warband. Alex was a reasonably new player. He's played a lot of tabletop games, he said, but reasonably new to Lord of the Rings. So he doesn't have Forlong behind his warriors. So I put down Bolg right and his warband right on the center line. We are ready to go. My ogres are held back in reserve just a little bit. When Imrahil's around, the fiefdoms go up to fight 5, so it can be kind of nice to have those ogres to sort of drop them in and apply pressure in different spots, or just be like, keep them away from Imrahil and be like, I've got the high fight for a change. It's nice to have. So Bolg is threatening Forlong on turn 1, and
Imrahil's fight bubble that's only like 3 inches of.
It's only like 3 inches, so it's not that hard to have the ogres away from him and be capitalizing on that fight 5. And of course, Alex puts down his last warband, which is Angborn the Fearless, with like 2 clansmen and some pikemen and a couple of Blackroot Vale archers. They go down pretty much in between the other 2 warbands, just in front of the center hobbit hole. So Alex takes turn 1 priority, which isn't what we wanted. Bolg is actually within 6 inches of Forlong the Fat, so I wanted to win priority and force my opponent to make me master of battle. But that's okay. Thimble calls the heroic move. He's close enough by to affect Bolg. And because Bolg is right next to Forlong, Alex decides not to call the heroic move with Forlong. So my heroic Thimble moves first, we move up, and we just go for it, Sam. We charge Bolg into Forlong. Thimble's warband and Bolg's warband go into Forlong's warband, and there is going to be blood. And Imrahil comes rushing around the flank. Angborn comes rushing up. Because of my heroic move, I was not able to enact my cunning plan with my Hunter Orcs behind the wall just yet. They had to forego their movement and take a turn of shooting. We almost lost one. It was a close thing. We almost lost a Hunter Orc to shooting, but fortunately, the wall blocked most of the shots. So in the combat phase, despite having a number of guys in combat with the fiefdoms, we only kill one of them. But Forlong, of course, does not have strike and loses the fight to Bolg. Has to spend, I think he got a 1 or a 2 on his 1 fate roll. Bolg put 3 wounds on him. And he has to spend 2 points of might to only suffer 2 wounds and survive for another turn. So I take turn 2 priority, and Forlong decides that now's the time, spends his last point of might, calls a heroic move. Bolg counter moves for free. Unfortunately, Forlong wins the move off, but fortunately for Bolg, there isn't anywhere that he can go. He's sort of blocked in by the hobbit hole and his own warriors. He cannot escape. So we re-engage. Forlong and his warband charge back into Bolg. Angborn and his warriors go charging into Fimble, who's sort of holding Bolg's flank, and Imrahil goes into one orc who is holding the rest of Bolg's flank. Bolg has a very big flank, so very, very big flank on that base. So, here we go. We're getting into it again. And Imrahil calls a heroic combat, which gives Bolg a free heroic combat, which is nice fighting against Forlong there. Bolg goes first, which is good because Imrahil is in a position to come into Bolg's combat, which we didn't really... I mean, I've still got the high fight. I wasn't too worried, but I didn't really want it. Bolg wins his fight against Forlong, kills Forlong, and goes into another warrior of whatever, the pikeman, I think, one of the pikemen, kills him too. Imrahil, of course, kills his guy and manages to get into my spear support, kills another guy as well. Fimble has called a strike against Angborn, so Fimble and Angborn having a strike off. Angborn rolls with both fight 5.
It's Angborn, not Born.
Angborn, sorry. Angborn.
Not Angborn. There's no N at the end.
Right. Angborn's one of the is Angborn the ranger then?
Yes, I think so.
Gotcha. Too many similar names, Sam. So Angbor and Fimble are having a strike off. Angbor, they both fight 5. Angbor gets a 2. Fimble gets a 3. So fortunately, we win this fight. Angbor did get the 6 with his greatsword, so it was a worrying thing. Fimble got the 6 off a banner reroll, and we put
broadsword.
Broadsword. I'm sorry, I said greatsword, didn't I?
I mean, it's the same thing, but that's the name of the rule.
Right, the broadsword.
Technically, it's the broadsword.
So we managed to put 2 wounds on Angbor as well. So he spends his point of fate, which he passes and suffers only 1 wound.
Halfway there, though, I believe he's only 2 wounds.
Yeah, he's only 2 wounds, and out of fate, down to 1 might. So, turn 3, Alex takes priority, and Bolg decides to call a move, which Alex does not counter. And this is where it begins. Forlong has been killed. Oh, he's still there. Oh no, Forlong hasn't been killed. Yeah, we killed Forlong. Oh, I should say too, Sam, I pulled up the picture and it has reminded me my cunning strategy with my Hunter Orcs this turn was to lie down behind their wall. Like a real asshole, I lay down on my Hunter Orcs. And there was 2 things going on here. One, I didn't want to just be taking bow shots. The other thing it did is it pulled the Knights forwards. It sort of invited the Knights to come into the space where like only a couple of the Hunter Orcs could rush them from behind the wall, and there was this ogre back there. So they were sort of bait, but also it was this like, I don't want you to shoot me, and I want to pull your army forward. So my Hunter Orcs laid down last turn. So Alex takes priority this next turn. Bolg calls a move, which I get to go first. So Bolg goes into Imrahil. Fimble goes back into Angbor. We surround the rest of Forlong's warband, going to kill that warband, and the knights that my Hunter Orcs by the wall had pulled forwards, I managed to engage with a handful of Hunter Orcs that had been basically bottlenecks behind the rest of my force and couldn't get in. So we got them all tied up, and we get the beginnings of a long game of Bolg and Imrahil fighting it out. In the combat phase, we get an epic 6 kills and only take 4 casualties this turn. So we're a good ahead on the kills in this game at this point. Bolg wins his fight against Imrahil. No, he loses the fight against Imrahil. Doesn't win the fight against Imrahil, because I'd have taken him off his horse if I'd won. I just wanted to win 1 fight. So, Bolg's gone into Imrahil, lost the fight. Imrahil does not get the wound. We've killed 6 casualties, and Alex takes turn 5 priority. So Bolg decides to spend his last point of might on a move. I should say, too, that Imrahil struck last turn. We got the strike off. Both got to 10. Imrahil won the roll-off, but importantly, Imrahil has now spent another point of might. Bolg decides to spend his last point of might to call the move. Imrahil does not counter. Bolg re-engages Imrahil. I get 2 friends in with him. We've got an orc with a spear support into Imrahil. We're wrapping up the rest of these warbands. In the combat phase, I've now got a banner and 5 dice in the fight against Imrahil. He's out of might. Bolg's out of might. And I don't get the 6. Imrahil gets the 6, wins the fight. Can't kill Bolg. It's okay. I take next turn priority. And this time, we're not messing around. We're sending the ogre in, Sam. It's Bolg and the ogre versus Imrahil. We've now got 7 dice to win this fight. Don't do it. In fact, I don't win a single fight this turn. Every single fight, where I was winning. Imrahil's banner reroll came up a 6, and the fiefdoms would fight off my guys. So I took 4 casualties this turn. Imrahil still can't wound Bolg, but it's like, oh, come on, we just gotta capitalize. It's like slipping away from me. I felt like it was winning, and it's just slowly slipping away. These fiefdom guys are dragging it out. So Alex takes turn 7 priority. I'm out of might on Bolg. Imrahil finally charges into Bolg. He's finally got the charge bonus. So if he wins the fight this time, he's wounding me on 5s. That's okay. We put the ogre back into Imrahil in my counter move. I kill 3 fiefdoms guys this turn, take only 2 casualties, but unfortunately, Sam, one of them is Bolg. I had 7 dice to win that fight with the ogre and the high fight and the banner reroll, and Bolg didn't win the fight, and Imrahil didn't even need his lance bonus because Alex picked up his 3 dice and rolled 3 6s.
Ouch.
And I failed my fate roll, and down goes Bolg on turn 7. So that was pretty catastrophic.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah. But we've done some serious damage to the fiefdom's army at this point. We are both broken at the end of the next turn, where we both inflict 4 casualties on each other. And Thimble has run away from Angborn. Thimble's out of might, Angborn's out of might. I decided, screw it. I need my cavalry. I need to go steal that objective. We've killed both the knights. So this turn, Angborn is fighting against 2 Hunter Orcs and is slain by Hunter Orcs. Angbor. I've got it written down on my score sheet wrong, which is my problem, Sam. So Angbor is fighting against 2 Hunter Orcs and is killed by Hunter Orcs this turn.
Nice.
Both of us are broken. And we get into what ends up being the last turn of the game. Imrahil comes charging over to the flank objective. We've both got 5 guys near this objective. Imrahil kills one of the guys, so now the fiefdoms have 5 models. I've got 4 models. So one of my ogres is nearby, Sam. He wins his fight. He barges. He gets the 5. He goes, this is where I screwed up. I charged into 2 models. I should have just charged into 1. I got greedy. I charged into 2 models. I lost the fight, and the ogre got killed. No, indeed. Tragedy. But I had at one point been sending some of Bolg's warband off behind that back hobbit hole in an attempt to take that back objective, draw some forces away. They got annihilated by the fiefdoms warriors, but then the fiefdom warriors smelt blood. Bolg had died, and they came charging forward. So Alex didn't have anyone near his back objective.
Okay.
So this game came down to a 3-3 tie, with Thimble and a Hunter Orc having stolen the leftmost objective, one of my Hunter Orcs holding my back objective, and a whole mess contesting the right objective, and Alex's back objective completely unscored, and Bolg dead. So Alex got 1 victory point from the objectives, 2 victory points for killing Bolg, and then I got 3 victory points for controlling objectives for a 3-all tie.
Surely it should have been at least a 4-4 tie.
Oh, 4-all. I guess we reported that wrong. 4-all tie.
You were both broken, right?
Yeah, we were both broken. Both broken on the same turn. It was a really fun game. One that I felt like I should have won. I think I rolled something like over 20 dice with the high fight to win against Imrahil and just couldn't roll a 6, which was a bit hard to bear, especially after Bolg.
Yeah.
Just dying. But the ogres came alive this turn. They crushed a lot of fiefdoms guys, which was quite satisfying to have a good game with the ogres. One of them finally died at the end of the game. He only had 1 wound left and failed me at the last hour. I'd have won if that ogre had killed his guy. I'd have had 5 models to the 4 in the fiefdoms. I could have, if I hadn't moved him to combat, I'd have just contested the objective and won. But,
yeah. Well,
it is what it is. It was a really fun game and super enjoyable to play against. Alex was a great opponent.
And I've got to imagine fun to bring Bolg and the boys back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Got Bolg to Mighty Hero in a 3-game tournament and didn't think that was going to happen.
Nice, not bad. Did you get 2 hero kills with Bolg? Were you able to achieve that tournament bingo?
No. The only hero that Bolg killed was Forlong the Fat.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. Bolg's the one who likes to kill troops.
Yeah. And, he got eaten by a bear on turn 2 in game 1, and then...
I mean, the bet, that's a tough. I mean, you could have almost had Bayonne if it had gone the other way, right?
Yeah, I mean, it came down to the strike off, and I like I said, I rolled a 1 on my strike.
Yeah, I mean, that's the tough thing. Even if you had gone to 10, then it's a 50-50 roll.
50-50 roll off.
So,
but I mean, he was trapped, and I had an ogre in there, and he was out of fate. So if I'd won the fight,
right.
And I piercing struck too. I was like, we're going hard, which means I win him on 4s.
Yeah. All right. So Ben, do you want to give us? Do you have the rankings? Can you tell us who won what and
Do
where and how?
indeed have the rankings. One moment here. All right. So in first place, apparently the tiebreaker, by the way, for first place came down to the fourth tiebreaker. It came down to the last tiebreaker
Wow.
by which is margin of victory by a difference of 3 victory points denied to opponents. So ridiculously close for first
Wow.
place. We've got Scott, and he had an interesting force. It was Halls of Thranduil, Minas Tirith, and the White Council, which was Radagast on an eagle. So we had Denethor leading 15 Minas Tirith guys. I think it was Legolas from the Halls of Thranduil leading elf warriors, and then Radagast flying around on an eagle. Really interesting army.
The classic alliance of the
A classic alliance.
Son,
I think their gaming group is called Convenient Alliance. So somewhat accurate.
Fair.
In third place, we've got Dustin, who also had a good force, which is the Return of the King Legendary Legion.
In third place?
I'm sorry, in second place. Tell a lie. In second place. Like I said, that difference came down to the fourth type.
Right.
Ridiculously close. And then in third place, we have an evil force, who was Chris, which was the Blackgate Opens Legendary Legion, which I think is probably fantastic and very fun to play at 600 points.
Yeah. So, turns out the nerf to the Dragon Emperor was enough for all of you doubters. No Dragon Emperor, not a whiff of Dragon Emperor in the top.
No, there were not a whiff of Easterlings at this event.
Obviously, that's not a wide enough sampling, but still funny to say. And were there any other prizes to talk about, or was it just
So
second and
Stephen Dronfield, who many of you may know on Instagram as the Dragon Horde, who is a master painter, does some very cool armies, was doing, I don't know if he was sponsoring the event or if Ian had just invited him to come judge the painting. So there was a painting competition for favorite army, which was judge voted. I'm not quite sure what favorite meant, whatever. Favorite army, best painted army, and best display. And Ian, the tournament organizer, interestingly enough, I think it was his Ringer army, won best display. It was a really cool Fellowship army on an awesome Arm and Hen. It was the breaking of the Fellowship actually on a really nice Arm and Hen display board. It looked fantastic. And Scott won favorite army with his Defenders of Helm's Guard Legendary Legion. Sorry, should know the name of that one. We did a Patreon armies on that one as well. So he won favorite army with that one, and then I won best painted with the Gundabad force, which was a bit of a surprise. Honestly.
Excellent.
Yeah. So another best painted win for Bolg, which is fantastic. He's now on
another medal for the trophy case.
Yeah.
Trophy for the trophy case, even. Well, excellent. So Ben, good event, worth the drive and the winter weather.
Yeah, it was. It was a really great event, and I think partly what made it a great event was that despite the wait time between rounds, although I was one of the people playing to the last minute on round 3, desperately trying to scrape a win or a draw or whatever out of that mess. But everyone was really friendly. We were just hanging out and chatting. I had a good time hanging out with the TO after round 1. So yes, fun event, definitely worth the drive.
Awesome.
And the awful DC weather drive back through DC in the rain was just terrible. But we will not get into that.
I think it's terrible whether it's raining or otherwise. But yes, as you said, we won't get into that. I think we'll call this an end. It's a lot harder to track how long these episodes actually are, given how we're recording them nowadays. But it will be over an hour, I'm sure. So until next time. Actually, until next time, we're going to talk about where we can be found,
exactly,
and everything like that. Ben, so are you prepared, or should I?
I think the first place that you will find us next is this very weekend. If you are listening to this on release date, dear listener, Sam and I will be battling it out as the Bjornings in the Adepticon doubles. So do be looking out for some Adepticon content coming up. I think we'll probably release the GT next, so there'll be Adepticon Grand Tournament Part 1, Adepticon Grand Tournament Part 2, and then, of course, the Adepticon doubles, which we are playing right now.
Probably depends how we did. But yes, Adepticon doubles on the Friday that this releases, and then a weekend's worth of grand tournamenting.
And after that, Sam, in April, I am hoping, assuming I'm back north, I may not be with my work, but you never know. On April 27th, I am going to be attending one tournament to rule them all. which is, I believe, an 800-point tournament hosted in New England, hosted by an Iverson of the Unexpected Podcast and advertised to be an Iverson-free tournament. So you can go to a tournament in New England and not face an Iverson. This is an advertising point on the tournament. This is not me advertising this. This is as advertised by the TO. So one tournament to rule them all, April 27th, which is actually at a pretty sweet game store in Massachusetts, in Acton, Massachusetts, at Gaming Tech.
Holy shit, Ben! You know the city and the state that you're going to.
I happen to have it on my phone, Facebook events.
Very good, very good.
So that is April 27th. And then, Sam, after that, we have the Richmond Open.
Yes. Which
I actually am not prepared for. I don't have the dates for that one.
It is, of course, the 4th and 5th of May, the first weekend in May.
Yeah, May the 5th be with you.
I believe you're supposed to say May the 4th be with you, man. I don't know why. That's what I've heard.
I play Lord of the Rings, not Star Wars, okay?
Nice. Nailed it. First try. Yeah. All right. And then after that, so I'm going to quickly go through mine. So obviously, as we said, Adepticon. Then on the 6th of May, I'll be hopefully attending the Schmiegel and Deagle Good vs. Evil tournament, which I believe is you bring optional Good vs. Evil of 650 points, played at Games and Stuff in Glen Burnie, Maryland. And then, as you said, there's the...
That's on the 6th of May?
6th of April. I've gone back.
April. Okay.
Because I'm doing my events. 6th of April. And then on the 4th and 5th of May, we've got the Richmond Open, as you said, which is, I believe it's an 800-point on the Saturday. It's an 800-point event. That's a qualifier for the top 8 of the Sunday GT. If you don't qualify, or if you only want to do Sunday, you can join the second breakfast tournament, which is 500 points. And this is a Rob Loader run event, so there'll be lots of really awesome trophies. And he's got, all manner of prizes to give out, which is always a great time. And then moving onto the 18th and 19th of May, we've got the Big Trouble in Little Dale, an event that I am super excited for, except for the getting there part of it. But that is is it Portland, Maine?
Yes, Portland, Maine.
Somewhere in Maine, and that is 350 points. No hero over 100 points. And I think Ben is running some silly 3 versus 3 free-for-all game. That's upsettingly difficult for me to say, but in the evening between those, and I think that was a fun event last year, and I think this time it's going to be even more fun. And
that's at HuzzarCon, which is Maine's premium wargaming convention, and of course, as we all know, historical wargaming convention, I should say, historical wargaming convention. That's what the H in Huzzar is for. And as we all know, Sam, Lord of the Rings, very historical.
It is true. That's where we'll be at Adepticon, and as we know, Ben, premium is right, because the event may be free, but the convention badges sure aren't.
I got mine free, Sam, because I'm running an event.
But anyway, enough of all that. I think that covers us for the next few months at the very least. So there'll be plenty of episodes, plenty of coverage coming out. And who knows, maybe we'll get some hobby interview kind of episodes coming up now that we've sort of nailed or figuring out this whole video format thing. So with all that being said, Ben, I think that's it for me for this episode. Unless there's anything else you wish to say, I think we can call it there.
Yeah. Lemarier.
Nerd. Thank you for listening to Gondor Calls for Ale. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. We, at Gondor Calls for Ale, are officially sponsored by the Baron of Dice, the producer of premium wargaming dice. These beautifully hand-swirled resin dice have no microbubbles and are therefore perfectly balanced. With over 3,000 variants and unique designs, nearly every tabletop gaming system is represented. So check out the description of this episode for a link and a discount code. Go buy yourself some new dice and let the good times roll. We at Gondor Calls for Ale are not associated with Games Workshop, New Line Cinema, or the Tolkien Estate. We hope we have not misrepresented or offended anyone, These recordings are strictly recollections of games we've played and are not commentaries on the character or competence of our opponents. They are intended purely for entertainment, and we hope they will be taken as such. You can find us on Patreon, see the link in the description. Supporting Gondor Calls for Ale there helps us continue to produce these episodes. You can find us on Instagram at Gondor_calls_for_ale. Feel free to send us a message there. Or on Facebook as Gondor Calls for Ale, another great place to send us a message. Or you can send us an email at gondorcallsforale@gmail.com. As Boromir, Captain of the White Tower, once said, remember today, listener, today this episode was good.